Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 crossover with the host of Locked On Baylor. It is Drake Toll, and then also the host of Locked On Texas Tech. Red Raiders, Texas Tech. Emory, always correct me.
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech. Boom. Nailed it. Emory Lyda. So tonight, it's been quarterback week on Locked On Big 12. We are going to do our collective top 5 Big 12 quarterback power rankings tonight. It's going to be fun. We'll tell you guys how we're going to do it right after this.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so here we go. All right, I'm Josh. There's Drake. There's Emory. So I've kind of tweaked a little bit what we're going to do. We're going to do it all together. We're going to do our top 5 quarterbacks in the Big 12. We're going to power rank them. We're going to start at 1. We'll go through 5 because that's actually – you can't go 5 to 1 because it'd be way too difficult to do that. So I think we're all going to go around at 1 and say our person. We'll discuss and then come up with one collectively. Then we'll do the same thing for 2, 3, 4, and 5. Does that work? We cool with that, boys?
I feel like we should rock, paper, scissors for who goes first because someone has to jump in the fire.
I'll do it. I'll throw myself in the fire.
All right. This is all you then.
This has not been popular. Okay, so I'm just going to say it and then I'll go to you, Drake, and after this.
Yeah.
I've got Dylan Gabriel number 1. Drake, who do you have?
So my number 1 would be literally anyone but Spencer Sanders. But I also think, I battled with Dylan Gabriel at that spot. And I think in the end, there's nothing that can wholly convince me to remove him from there. Give me Dylan Gabriel because of Levy, not because of Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah. Emory.
I'll take Dylan Gabriel because of Dylan Gabriel. Because I feel like his production at UCF, granted it was under Josh Heupel, the offense didn't look pretty at times, but the stats are there. The stats looked absolutely incredible at UCF. I mean, really good vertical passer. Some of the best deep ball stats over the course of the last couple of years. Unfortunately, got hurt last year, obviously. And I mean, I think that his offense under Levy is going to be really fun to watch. Now, I mean, I still have my reservations about him as a talent, but in terms of production, experience, and what he can bring to Oklahoma, I think that for me, Gabriel's a small step ahead of everyone else in the conference. It wouldn't shock me if someone was to overtake him. And certainly, I mean, the Big 12, I think, is better this year from a quarterback standpoint, but certainly I still think Gabriel is pretty clearly the number 1.
That's the big question here is like, what do we use? Because this what makes conference so fun is that the quarterback is such a big question mark. But I think that there's a bunch of there's a couple 5-star guys, Ewers and Daniels, that are talent-wise above Dylan Gabriel, no doubt. But it's a guy that's got somehow 3 years of college eligibility left, but had a 30 touchdown season, at least one, and then I think it was upper 20s on the other. Not a big dude. He's not very tall. He's kind of thick. Which let
me tell you a story about a guy named Baker Mayfield.
Yes,
I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Exactly. Short
Kyler Murray, if you will.
Yeah, Baker's a bit thicker than Kyler was. But this is the weird part, right? Even Jalen Hurts, like Dylan Gabriel he's the least talented OU quarterback we've seen in the last 5 or 6 quarterbacks, right? Baker, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler. He is by far the least talented guy, but I think there's a combination of both what Emory and Drake both said. Jeff Lebby plus what we've seen already from Dylan Gabriel. I think it's like, people could say Spencer Sanders and there's an argument there, but I just don't know how you don't go with Dylan Gabriel. I feel like he's in a good spot. I know there's some question marks, skill positions, but it's a good spot, right, Drake? It's just OU's promotes quarterback success. It's kind of
and that's what's weird for me in the battle between the 1 and the 2, because I think the 1 is pretty much wide open when you look at the scale of, you do have a guy like JT Daniels who has great potential in this league, and you've mentioned already Spencer Sanders who has already, maybe he's maxed out his potential, and that's why I don't know if I put Spencer Sanders in that number 2 slot. If we're already, can we go number 2?
Let's do it. Let's just do it.
Let's all collectively go number 2.
So Drake, you lead us off. Number 2, who you got?
My number 2, and I will die on this hill. You can call me a homer, but thank God I didn't put him at 1. And it's got to be Gary Bohannon. Here's why. Here's why.
Oh my
you ready for this? Listen to this.
Yes,
QBR in the Big 12 in 2021. Gary Bohannon was the third best quarterback in the league, ahead of Brock Purdy and Spencer Sanders. Not only that, he was only behind Caleb Williams and Skylar Thompson. Both those guys are no longer in the league. So going strictly by QBR, he'd be your number one. Obviously, I don't think he will be number one, but Gary Bohannon and most quarterbacks are as good as their offensive line allows them to be. And I think Baylor, almost without question, has the best O-line in the Big 12 coming in this year. They had arguably the best O-line last season. 4 of your 5 guys are back, including the Big 12 Offensive Lineman of the Year. Therefore, Gary Bohannon, even with one receiver and a pack of gum that's at wideout this season, I think Gary Bohannon, linebacker build, is my number 2, and I will die on that hill.
Rick, you mentioned QBR, right?
I did mention QBR.
Who had a higher QBR in 2021 than Gary Bohannon? Adrian Martinez.
No.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. Wait, are you putting Martinez too?
I'm not putting Martinez at 2.
Okay, thank God.
But if we're going to go QBR, Martinez is literally better than Bohannon.
So, Emory, who's your number 2?
I'm going to go with JT Daniels. I think
the
production there
I like that.
Production there isn't quite what you would say from other guys, but I just look at, you're operating on such a small sample size, and every time we've seen JT Daniels in college, he's looked really good. Sure, you had whatever happened last year at Georgia, which was very confusing and sort of ambiguous. You had the year before where he basically started 4 games, and the offense looked incredible in those 4 games. They looked virtually unstoppable at times. Then you had his year at USC's freshman year, which, he made a lot of mistakes through some picks, but he also showed a lot of talent as a true freshman playing in the Pac-12, which, granted, we've seen people have better freshman seasons, but still, it was a good start to his career. At no point has he not looked like a really talented quarterback. Now, the situation at West Virginia, I think, is going to play a large factor in that. I'm not overly high on their offense as a whole, but certainly you have JT Daniels as a guy that has shown the talent. And, I have faith in his talent winning over. I think that certainly it's going to be interesting to see because we haven't really seen him play more than 4 or 5 games since 2018. So that's going to be 5 seasons basically. But I've got faith in it. So we'll see. Again, after Gabriel, I think there's just a whole gaggle of quarterbacks that you could take anywhere from 2 to say maybe 5 or 6. But for me, Daniel's pure talent kind of wins out on that case.
Emory, you know that his head coach is a guy named Neil Brown, and his offensive coordinator is Graham Harrell, who
his old offensive coordinator, though, mind you.
Neil Brown's offense is absolutely filled with probably the most boring scheme that you can think of. But
thank you, Emory, and scene.
But all right. But then you look at Graham Harrell and you say, well, he had a pretty productive year under him at USC, and certainly, I think maybe I'm choosing to believe that Neil Brown bringing in Graham Harrell is kind of looking at himself in the mirror and being like, hey, let's try to spice things up a little bit this year. So, again, I'm not comfortable with picking Daniels at 2, but I feel like just looking at the pure talent, if you were looking at the resume coming into college, you would say it's Ewers and it's Daniels. And then if you look at what Daniels has done in college, he's done nothing to really prove that he's a bust or anything like that. So I've just got to go with the talent. I've got to go with the fact that he's looked solid. And yes, Neil Brown being his head coach does not give me much confidence, but it is what it is.
All right, so I have to split the difference here. I'm going with talent because we all have somebody different. So I'm going with talent plus proven abilities, a little bit of both. I'm going with Spencer Sanders.
Yeah.
Just because of, he was all Big 12 last year. Look, I'm on Spencer Sanders Island. I will say there are times you're like, please, just why can't we take care of the football at all? Mostly a lot of the Baylor game, both Baylor games, honestly. Yeah. So, but then there's the Notre Dame game where you're like, oh my God. And look, I know you say, no, don't read too much in bowl games, but the Ole Miss game for Gary Bohannon was a case where it's like, look, they could have stepped in the throat anytime they wanted to if they had a really good quarterback. I thought Baylor could have. But Gary was not good enough in that game at all. So I think, so we're all going different directions here. All right. We have to pick one together. So is anybody willing to back off their corner to go somebody else's? Emory's not talking.
Having
seen JT Daniels.
I'm sticking with JT Daniels.
But if I was going to go with talent, I would have gone with Quinn Ewers.
Oh, whoa!
Ewers hasn't even played. Like, at least Daniels has shown that he's played the college level.
But Quinn Ewers, but as you know, like JT Daniels, 5-star, right? But Quinn Ewers was like the top recruit in his class. There's 5 stars and there are 5 stars. Like and I feel like if anybody in that super talented range is to work out, I would have gone that direction. So I cannot in good faith take JT Daniels at 2. He might end up there. Also knowing what I know about West Virginia's offense, I'm afraid of it, Emory. I don't have much faith in it. So I can't in good faith go JT.
I wish I could help with the Spencer Sanders case, but I have with my own 2 eyes seen Spencer Sanders throw 7 of his 12 interceptions last season. So when he faces an elite, a good defense, the dude just crumbles, even in a win. He won one of those games in Oklahoma, in Stillwater. So
he didn't really win it, but they did. The team did win. Yes.
The team won it, right? Big Sugar Bowl. Gary Bohannon might not have won the Sugar Bowl, but
he was on a Sugar Bowl winning team. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess that means we have to fold and pick Gary Bohannon at 2.
I'm not gonna side with Emory. And Emory, are you not gonna back off JT?
Okay. I'll break the tie here. I'll say I'm closer to Gary Bohannon being 2 than I am Spencer Sanders.
What? I don't
defending Big 12 champion quarterback.
I don't think Gary Bohannon should be the quarterback this year.
They decided it on the biggest stage. Blake Shapen's a hell of a baseball player.
We have a 3-year sample size of Spencer Sanders actively basically being forced to play with crutches because they don't trust him enough to open up the offense. They tried it in 2019, and at times it was a complete disaster. 2021, when he wasn't making mistakes, he was a solid quarterback. The problem is in the big games, in the games where he actually had to face good defenses, he threw picks, which is the exact thing that they were trying not to have him do by stacking the run game and putting so much emphasis on it. And sure, Gary Bohannon is far from a complete quarterback. I think that he's got a lot of work to do, and he had inconsistencies last year. But between those two, I think Bohannon has both the resume and the wins that we've seen Spencer Sanders had. You look at it, and the two of them played on teams that from a pure ability standpoint were similar last year. They got to the same point. I think Bohannon certainly got the raw talent edge to some degree. He's shown a little bit less inconsistencies, and I have more faith in him developing more than Spencer Sanders, who we now have a 3-year sample size of him making similar mistakes every single year.
That's fair.
Wow. I somehow played my cards into Gary at 2.
So I can't believe we're doing that. So here's the rule. We go to number 3, guys. So we cannot take, so guys who are already taken are off the board. All right. So Bohannon's gone. You can't nominate him 3rd, obviously. And so obviously Gabriel's gone. So now we have to go to different people. Before we go to 3, quick word from our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you guys by Built Bar. Go to built.com today. It's built.com to find the best tasting protein bars out there. They've got flavors like mint brownie, coconut almond. They're always introducing new flavors as well at built.com. Most Built bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. They taste like candy bar, but are much healthier. Candy bars that usually have 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. So choose Built bars today, built.com. Promo code LOCK15, LOCKED15, LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com today. All right, number 3, and Emory, you get to go first here. So who do you have at number 3? Are you going to double down on JT Daniels at 3?
Doubling down.
Oh my God.
If he was my number 2 pick, he's got to be my number 3 pick. I'm still look, at some point I will recognize that there are guys that have probably better college resumes than JT Daniels, like Spencer Sanders. But I can't with a straight face say that I would rather have Spencer Sanders leading my team. Now, will he probably end up with more wins this year? Yeah, because West Virginia's overall team and offense in particular, I don't have a lot of faith in. But if you're looking at pure quarterback play, I still have faith in JT Daniels. Maybe I'm on an island in that one.
You probably will be on this one, yeah.
Yeah. And I certainly think that you could make a case for Quinn Ewers having more raw talent. But see, we haven't seen any sample of Quinn Ewers in college. We've at least seen JT Daniels has looked like a really good quarterback at times. And so I'm sticking to it. I'm not changing up my philosophy on this one.
Drake?
Emory, the reason that I'm not going to fault you for that pick is mostly because this guy has played at an SEC caliber, right, on a national championship team where he saw reps. He's got, in 2020, in a smaller sample size, still 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The only problem with JT Daniels, and it kind of comes to the question of what we're analyzing entirely, in a draft combine format, JT Daniels is probably a top 3 quarterback in the Big 12, no question. But in West Virginia's offense, playing in Morgantown this season, is he top 3? I don't know, but Emory, since you are so valiantly dying on this hill, my number 3 is JT Daniels.
Oh
because
my God.
it just looking down the rest of the list, and I don't like Spencer Sanders. I just don't. And then Adrian Martinez.
I don't think you can take Gary Bohannon at 2 and be like, Spencer Sanders, get your ass back to 4.
Did. Well,
I don't think that's consistent.
And I got away with it.
Emory just laid it out for us why it's like, look, these two guys are pretty similar. If I have to pick one, no, Emory's case is if I have to pick one of JT, or excuse me, if I have to pick one of Spencer Sanders or Bohannon, I'm picking Bohannon. But that bumps him all the way back to 4 now. And I'm overruled here. It doesn't even matter who I say because you guys have both got. So I guess, so here it is. Number 1, we have Dillon Gabriel. Number 2, we have Gary Bohannon. Number 3, we now have JT Daniels. But I will say this, and we mentioned this before, but we talked about this the other night, like which quarterback has the most on the line this year? And I think it's JT because you think about he doesn't have much time left, right? He was in the same recruiting class as Lawrence and Fields, and those guys will be entering their second year in the NFL, which is pretty crazy to think. And also, I don't love the pick of going to a place like West Virginia. Like, I've got no clue what their offense is going to look like. And so he might have all talent in the world, but for a guy that's in a prove it year, like I would like a better first weapon than Bryce Ford Wheaton. No offense to him. He's a good player, but like I would, who's going to play running back for them? Like, is their offensive line going to hold up? I mean, got so many questions. Let's go to 4.
Well,
I'm going to go.
Josh.
Yes.
I think you may see an even bigger prove it year from Spencer Sanders because
but JT is more on the line. If JT nails it this year, he's going to be a first round pick next year.
Oh, now
that's
a take. First round pick.
Well, he's
right?
But he's got the 5. I think what is he?
So he's played like 3 or 4 years. He's been in college football since I was.
I think he's got an injury red shirt. And
COVID year, and so he could basically play for the next 6 years. I think he could keep playing.
Yeah. Now, look, nobody knows anybody's eligibility at this point because it's all confusing. Right. But if it was the same recruiting class, I think it would be 18 recruiting class.
Yeah.
So I think that would put him at year 2. I think he's got a year or 2 left, whatever in college. That's why I think it's like, because here's the thing, if he doesn't nail it this year, like it's kind of done. Like
his coach gets fired, his OC gets fired. His
coach probably gets fired. Yeah, actually very true.
Yeah.
So
right.
That's why for him personally, I think is more on the line. Sanders in terms of like at some point this has to get better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think he's far too talented to play as well, as poorly as he has at the time. Like he's a talent.
Yeah. I think Tyler Shuck, if he doesn't win the quarterback job at Texas Tech, is another one that you could say like just getting the job in itself is going to be really approved. Because if he loses to either Donovan Smith or Baron Morton, you're suddenly talking about someone that 2 years ago was he was pretty high up on draft.
Emory. Last year, heading into the 2021 college football season, he had the 7th best odds, according to betonline.ag, to be the number 1 pick.
It was crazy.
Draft.
You have multiple people having him in the first round. Yeah.
And I understand why, because going to a place like Texas Tech and physical build, but like we'll get to Donovan Smith in a second because he might make an appearance in the top 5. He might, saying that. 4th, we're at 4. Can we please put Spencer Sanders in this list at some point? Yes. Is this guy going to make the list? Can we put him here? Yes. Are we going to do it?
He is a top 5 quarterback in the Big 12. Spencer Sanders, congratulations. After your 7 years at Oklahoma State, you are now the 4th best quarterback in the Big 12.
4th best quarterback in the Big 12. Let's go. All right. So now we're at 5. Drake, I believe you'll go first here. This is some dealer's choice. Yeah. This is kind of choose your own adventure. I think there's a bunch of different ways you can go. You can go with Adrian Martinez does better at K-State. You could, which I'm not going to do. You could go with whoever wins the Texas Tech job is going to be in a great offense, right? I mean, good, love it. Emory, I'm sure whatever guy's like, yes, I get to put up so many yards. My number's going to be awesome. Quinn Ewers' talent, I think, has a very strong case to be top 5. Drake, where are you going here, bud?
So I am not going to go the Adrian Martinez route. I don't think he has 2,800 passing yards last season, which is really good, but only has 14 touchdowns to show for it, along with 10 interceptions. Maybe it's
And a lot of fumbles.
And a lot of fumbles. And maybe that's a nature of a porous offense that he had, but he's going to Kansas State, which is not known for its great offenses. So I think Skylar Thompson was great for what Kansas State needed. I think Adrian Martinez will be a similar quarterback. I still don't think that is that's not like a future NFL, style quarterback. So I'm going to go at 5. And this is an absolute 100%, potential pick, Quinn Ewers. I'm going to go Quinn Ewers because the hype is there. He fits Texas in the culture hype zone, right? They're like, this is going to be the guy. So I think what he does is he comes out and he is like true freshman style Spencer Sanders, who like when you see him, you're like, holy cow, the flashes, it's there. I think Quinn Ewers ends up being in the top 5 of that 5 spot. I don't think he's as great. He's not the second coming or as good as everybody thinks he's going to be. I still think he can slip in the top 5 caliber, mostly because there's just a hodgepodge of quarterbacks in the Big 12 until you get to, Jason Bean or Jalen Daniels or whoever Kansas.
Who aren't bad. Who aren't, they're not
bad.
Awful. They're
not bad, but they play for Kansas. So they're my number 10. I'll give you that. So number 5, I'm going Quinn Ewers.
All right. Emory, are you going to go with this or do you have somebody else?
Okay.
I know who it is.
Who do you think it is?
Donovan Smith.
No, because here's the problem I have with choosing the Tech quarterbacks. I simply don't know which one's going to win the job. I think that
That's fair.
people have projected Smith to be the starter since day one, and there's certainly a chance of that happening. But you look at Tyler Shuck and forget that, again, he was a draft prospect coming into last year. Didn't look awful in his starts. He looked pretty decent. And then got injured. We haven't seen him play live ball until obviously the spring, and a lot of question marks around him. And then obviously you had Baron Morton as well, who's looked really good in spring, according to sources. So you've got all of this going on. Like any of those 3 guys could start day one, and it wouldn't surprise me. I think all 3 have the talent, and obviously in Zach Kittley's system have the potential to put up numbers that would be incredible. But with that said, I mean, I'm going to go, and maybe this is me just being completely blind to common sense, but I'm going to go with Adrian Martinez at 5.
Wow.
And I mean, I really do think that he was put in a position to fail in Nebraska. I mean, you look at having to split the reps with McCaffrey in 2020, I believe it was. And then last year, I mean, Nebraska had some of the worst late game luck I think I've ever seen in college football. You look at the touchdown to interception ratio wasn't great. I will give you that. But almost everything else on the stat sheet looked really good for Martinez. I mean, he's someone that averaged 9.4 yards per attempt last year, despite being in a system and with receivers that really weren't getting a ton yards after catch and playing in the Big Ten, which had some good defenses last year. You look at what he's able to do on the ground. I think it's going to fit in with what Chris Klieman's trying to do on offense. And certainly it's kind of fits the mold of what Kansas State has done on offense. And I mean, do I think that he's the most naturally talented quarterback? No, I think obviously Quinn Ewers. I think any of the 3 guys that win the Tech job is going to have an advantage. I'd even put maybe Max Duggan and TCU up there with them. But overall, I just think that it's a really good system to quarterback match. And Martinez has shown he can be a good to above average quarterback. And for me, he's the safest pick at 5. I think he's shown sort of the capability to be up there in the Spencer Sanders tier. Now, am I going to look stupid if he ends up being a complete dud at Kansas State and basically fails in the clutch like he did at Nebraska? Yeah, but I've got to go with him on this one.
So the one thing about Martinez that's interesting is that their offense is set up for him really well. They return a lot of their best pass catchers. They return the running backs. Obviously, Deuce Vaughn is like maybe the best weapon in the entire conference. The thing that's interesting about them is they have one of the slowest paces in all of college football. So if you're going to put a guy in a slow-paced offense, and I know Colin Klein's a new OC, but if you're putting a turnover-prone guy in a slow-paced offense in a game where you've got limited number of possessions, that concerns me because, some might say, well, he's going to have less opportunities to turn the ball over. I would say he's more turnover-prone, so he's going to waste more of your possessions. That would be where I would come from. So I think he might be the most interesting guy this year just because of his history, plus the potential with, Like, yeah, I think you might get with Colin Klein. I think Colin Klein will try to make Adrian Martinez as much of Colin Klein as he can, right? Trying to kind of make that type of player happen. I can't in good conscience go that direction though. Quinn Ewers has to be the pick right here. I think that offense too is, I mean, they have an embarrassment of riches. It is unreal how good that receiving core is. Xavier Worthy, Jaleel Billingsley, they just added Jai Hall. They have Jordan Whittington coming back. They've got 3 or 4 guys that are great targets, and also they've got 2 really good running backs coming back in Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson. So that if their line's any good and he is half the player that we're told he is, it's going to go well for him. I think we have to take Quinn Ewers at 5. Sorry, Emory.
Wow. Emory, I would have reasoned with you for either Donovan Smith or Shuck because they have the second best head coach and second best offensive coordinator in the entire Big 12. So I would have given you those
the
guys.
Second best head coach is Joey
McGuire? Easily. It's not even close. It's 1, 2.
Is this because he coached at Baylor?
No.
I
didn't even know he coached at Baylor. What are you talking about?
We have to get one more quick word from our sponsors. Then we're doing our wild card. So this, you don't have to go with the guy you already picked. This is the guy that could end up as the first team remaining guy that could end up as the first team all Big 12 quarterback that nobody has picked yet. All right. We have not picked yet. So that's our wild card. One more quick word from our sponsors, though. Today's show is brought to you by Bet Online and BetOnline. I wish they would give us some odds on these, on who will win the first team quarterback in the Big 12. They actually might do it for us if we ask them. They're great like that. They've got props, odds for everything: football, basketball, baseball. NHL playoffs are coming up as well. F1, NASCAR, Bellator, UFC. They got events this weekend: boxing, Tyson Fury, Dillian White this weekend. Want to bet on that? Bet Online's got you covered. Playoffs, esports, and more. Head over to Bet Online today on your mobile device, on your computer, on your iPod Touch, whatever you use still, as long as you're 21 years old, you can go there and do it. Bet Online. It's where the game starts. All right, time for everybody's wild card. This is the guy that could come out of nowhere. It is a Max Duggan who we're sleeping on. It's a Chandler Morris in a Sonny Dykes offense. Is it Jalen Daniels who can do it? Is it Adrian Martinez if Emory Lyda wants to double down on Adrian Martinez? I will let Drake, you can go first on this one, brother. All right, who's your wild card?
So I want to first say a very, very sad sorry to Sweet Prince Hunter Deckers, who we have not mentioned yet. He's not my wild card. He's not going to be in the top 5. He may not be in the top 10 in the end. He may just kind of be on the outside looking in as a guy that we have not. I think he's the one quarterback we haven't said his name.
We just haven't.
I want his name to go in there before we close. But my wild card is the single best quarterback that I have seen play in person in the Big 12 in the last 3 years, and that is Chandler Morris of the TCU Horned Frogs. I watched that guy throw for 500 yards without even knowing that he was starting. And so he walks out, I was like, is that Chad Morris's kid? And he torches Baylor. So give me Max Duggan decides to hang it up and become a GA after week 1 because he's so bad. Chandler Morris takes over. And wouldn't you know it, but you bring in the new offensive minds at SMU or at TCU now that developed the Tanner Mordecai. Chandler Morris, Big 12, all first team Big 12.
As your wild card. Baylor just looked like very unprepared for that game. That was kind of a big takeaway. More as fun as Chandler Morris, dude. Chandler Morris was just great. Yeah, dude, there were some balls where he was like, "YOLO, I don't really care where this one's going." I'm gonna work. And it did work.
He's just that good.
He's just that good. Emory.
All right, so I'm gonna go with a homer take here, and I'm not gonna pick Donovan Smith because I think there is even more of a wild card, and I'm gonna say absolute wild card. Baron Morton winning the starting job. Zach Kittley offense throws for 5,000 yards. 40 touchdowns, first team all Big 12. It could happen. I'm just saying. I think that any one of the 3 quarterbacks that win that Texas Tech job with the offense that Zach Kittley has built, what we saw him do at Western Kentucky and Easton Baptist, the amount of 6'4", 6'5" receivers that Tech has this year is pretty crazy. And the fact that you've got a good complementary run game, offensive line's a little bit sketchy. If the offensive line comes together, I think any one of those three quarterbacks has the potential and the talent to be able to make a first-team All-Big 12 selection. But in honor of it being a wild card, I'm going to go with the most outlandish of them all, and I'm going to say Baron Morton wins the job, puts up 4,500 yards, 40 touchdowns.
It's now the numbers are those are outlandish, but the idea that you can tell us, like the idea that one of the best recruits in Texas Tech history wins the job it's not like completely out of the picture, right?
No, it's not out of the picture completely. I mean, by all accounts, he's given an equal opportunity to win this job.
Right.
And it's not one of those things where like he's just in the competition for namesake. Like there are people in the program that genuinely think that he has a chance to win. There are guys that have certainly seen what he can do. And obviously it's a tall mountain to climb just with what Tyler Shuck has proven before he came to Tech, what Donovan Smith proved down that stretch of last year, and just what he was able to do in the Liberty Bowl and against Iowa State. But I mean, Baron Morton has the natural talent. He has shown ability. And I mean, at the end of the day, like you put any of those guys in a Kitley offense and they're going to put up numbers. Now, again, picking between the three of them, I think is the most difficult part of this, the wild card, because I think you could pick any of them.
So here's what I'll say about it. This ties into something I want to mention because I work on Sirius XM, Big 12 radio normally. And the amount of people who are like, they wronged Matt Wells. Okay, no, they didn't. This team now has brought in one of the hottest offensive minds in all of college football. And while doing, Emory, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think all three of those guys did not transfer because they saw that and they're like, I have potential to be the next Bailey Zapp, but maybe even more physically ready for the NFL because they've got this guy. And that's why none of those guys have left yet. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right. I mean, certainly Donovan Smith had a good relationship with Sonny Cumbie. And I don't want to sound disrespectful to Sonny because he did a good job last year.
Yes.
But, I mean, Zach Kitley is probably one of the hottest names in football right now when it comes to being a coordinator. You saw what he did at Western Kentucky. I think that...
And Houston Baptist.
Houston Baptist, he did an incredible job overturning that offense. But, I mean, you look at this, and this year was probably the one chance Texas Tech had to get Zach Kitley. And by being proactive, by going out getting Joey McGuire, overhauling the coaching staff, you gave yourself that opportunity. And I certainly think with Shuck and Morton in particular, the prospect of kind of getting themselves back on the NFL radar and for Shuck and getting themselves on the radar and Morton sort of allow them to go through this situation and be willing to take a three-way fight where, like, normally maybe you'd say after the performance Donovan Smith had, maybe those guys would be more willing to leave not knowing or having an offensive coordinator that isn't Zach Kitley, that hasn't shown that he can put up a 6,000-yard passer at Western Kentucky. So, I mean, I certainly think you're right in saying that he's a big reason why we maintained all three of those quarterbacks.
Donovan Smith's my guy. Oh, go ahead.
Best head coach, second best head coach, second best offensive coordinator in the entire Big 12. That's why, Emory, you're not crazy. You're on it.
But I appreciate it.
Baylor, Texas Tech, Arlington. See you there, Emory.
Is that what they're playing this year?
Well, they will in the Big 12 champion. The second time they play
Big 12 champion, round 2 matchup.
Yeah. There you go. I'm going to go with Donovan Smith. Here's what I will say. I think it is the mobility I like a lot. I think that, he doesn't just have to. I know Zach Kitley's offense does not always require a lot from the quarterback in that that respect, but he can move some. I like that. I like his ability to extend plays. I think his arm might be not the best compared to the third best, but like it's still pretty good. He's still got a good arm. And also last year, he had a couple of the best performances all season in the conference from a quarterback. So like, I don't think we can discount that. So, I would not be shocked if we're talking about Donovan Smith, second team all Big 12, first team all Big 12 at the end of the year. I would not be shocked at all, but that's one of those where it's like, it's like an NCAA tournament game. We're like, you know what? I'm taking this 11 seed to make the Sweet 16, but they have to win their play-in game first. The quarterback competition at Texas Tech is the first 4 game in Dayton, if you will. I feel like that's a pretty fair comparison, right? It's kind of
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if any of those 3 quarterbacks win it, you're talking about a guy that can put up a first 2-team Big 12 type of performance. And especially for Smith, who's a guy that, like you mentioned, had 2 of the best performances in the conference last year. Like, I mean, obviously you come off of what he did in the Liberty Bowl, just torching Mississippi State, especially in the second half. And suddenly, like, you could easily have a situation where he wins a starting job and the first 4 games of the year puts up ridiculous numbers. He'll have opportunities against Houston and NC State in the non-conference, and suddenly, like, he could easily come into October as a consensus top 3 quarterback in the Big 12, or he could be a second string guy and being on the bench behind Baron Morton or Tyler Shuck. You never know what you're going to get.
All right, guys, this has been fun. I've really enjoyed this. Shout out to Jalen Daniels, to Jason Bean, to Hunter Deckers, to Max Duggan, to Chandler Morris. Who am I missing? Anybody? Adrian Martinez, the guys who didn't make our list. Am I missing anybody?
Joey McGuire.
Blake Shapen, who I think should win the job, but that's just me and, whatever. All right, fellas, it is time for the plugs. Drake, where can people find you and all of your work in its variety?
Locked On Baylor. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I like the iPod reference. We're all of those places. Locked On Baylor on Twitter is probably the A1 place. At Drake, I think it's at Drake Cetol. I can't really remember. It's there somewhere. So Locked On Baylor. We're on YouTube now. Hit subscribe. I guess it'll give you an update every time we post, which is daily, wherever you find your podcast. And thank you for making us your first listen every day. Your second listen being Locked On Big 12, tied with Locked On Texas Tech or Red Raiders. I don't think
we're the Joey McGuire of podcasts.
Yeah, basically
that's what we are.
We're the Dave Aranda.
Dave Aranda podcast. There you go. Yeah. All right, Emory, what about you, man?
All right, so you can follow us on Twitter at LockedOnTTU. Keep it clean, but we post everything that we do. You can follow us wherever you get your podcast, whether that be Apple, Spotify. I mean, I'm more of a Spotify guy, but I understand if you go with Apple Pods. And then you can follow us on YouTube, where we continue to get more subscribers. You'll see everything we post. You'll see both me and Ryan and our lovely hats that we wear just about every day. And if you want to follow me personally and see some of the bad takes that I have, you can follow me at Eraser41. Hopefully I won't be tweeting too much about Adrian Martinez this year.
Okay, there you go. You guys can find me on Twitter at @JoshNeighbors_. You guys can find the show wherever you guys get your podcasts and on YouTube. Do not tweet at me telling me you have a solution to unhack my Instagram. All those bots out there, F you guys. I see you guys coming at me like that. They're trying to take down a wounded animal. My Instagram got hacked. They see me vulnerable. They know what they're doing.
So good.
Yeah, it's awful. All right, everybody. For Drake, for Emory, appreciate you guys joining us. It was a lot of fun. Till next time, fellas. See y'all later.